This theology spotlight will focus on author and journalist Douglas Lockhart, who was born in Scotland in the year 1938. His writing career started by accident in 1959 when, while serving with the Royal Army Medical Corps in Germany, he was invited to be features editor of his unit's in-house magazine. Biography: Douglas Lockhart has been an honorary research associate with the University of Tasmanian's School of Philosophy in Australia for 9 years, is an associate member of the Webster Institute in the U.S., and writer-in-residence with the Salamanca Arts Centre, Hobart, Tasmania. During the 70s in London, 1969 through 1979, he served for 3 years on the Central Committee for the Association for Humanistic Psychology, and helped set up awareness groups for deprived children in the city's East End. During this period, he also taught meditation in action at the Franklin School of Contemporary Studies in London, and was involved in experimental biofeedback work with a leading UK specialist involved in development of pain control techniques. This was done in conjunction with a cancer specialist at Bart's Hospital in London, and resulted in his being part of a thermophotographic experimental project at Bart's to do with hatha yoga postures. This project also involved Douglas in galvanic skin response, or GSR, registrations in connection with meditational states. Throughout this period, Douglas worked as a freelance journalist, and that basically is what Douglas is, a journalist fortunate enough to have gained academic recognition on the basis of his published works and their orientation. In this vein, his writing style is investigative, his conclusions experientially based, his intention the presentation of a point of view born not only from experience, but also from a wide intellectual engagement. Douglas by trade is not a theologian, but rather an investigative journalist. However, he has produced some theological work that deserves attention, namely the three that I will be recommending. His books is 1. The Dark Side of God, A Quest for the Lost Heart of Christianity. The Paradise Complex, a novel. And the main focus of today's theology spotlight would be his work entitled Jesus the Heretic, Freedom and Bondage in a Religious World. He has quite interesting perspective, and I want to read from the Goodreads website some comments from readers in the review section. Quote from Solucius writes, possibly the most important book on Christianity ever written, and to me more important than the Bible itself. An academic outline of the real history of Christianity, and especially Jesus, beyond the continual re-engineering of Christian history over the centuries that is Christianity today. This is on my most essential spiritual esoteric books list, because in finding a deeper pathway into spiritual and metaphysical learning and wisdom, this book will equip you with the facts to deprogram yourself from the culture or subculture, belief, and re-engineered teaching of the various church versions of the Jesus product, rather than the real historical Jesus, the church's version of Jesus as a fixed or as a fix-all product to all of life's problems and questions over the centuries has been a constant work in progress, social engineering construction by many church authors, and a very deliberate construction that is designed through cultural entrapment tactics and emotional slavery, using guilt, obedience, etc., to stop you from looking beyond the shackles of, quote, organized Christianity to philosophies that will set you free and expand your consciousness. This book deconstructs the constructions of Christianity over time, looking at each stage in history where Jesus the product was added to become the vehicle of mass social control for the disempowered today. If you are a Christian who thinks that ignorance is bliss, do not read this book. And the Goodreads bio reads, quote, "It is easy to believe that Jesus was sinless, sexless, and all-knowing, if that is all you have ever been taught. But what was Christ the man really like? Christians have been denied vital information concerning their religion, and Christ's true message has been lost in a sea of religious dogma." That's Jesus the Heretic, Freedom and Bondage in a Religious World by author and journalist Douglas Lockhart. And I would highly recommend, because it's a unique and journalistic approach to theological constructs. Also, I would recommend, and I haven't read this, but I intend to, The Dark Side of God, A Quest for the Lost Heart of Christianity. Brief description. Quote, "The Christian Church claims to inherit its spiritual authority directly from Jesus via the apostolic succession, but was there really a smooth transfer of power from Jesus to Peter and then to the Catholic Church? Or has a long-term campaign of propaganda, forgery, and deception concealed the true nature of events?" This thought-provoking new book on the origins of Christianity charts the Church's relentless pursuit of power from its beginnings to the present day. It is a compelling and often disturbing analysis of Christian belief, as he skillfully disentangles that Jesus of history from the Jesus of myth and religious doctrine. Douglas Lockhart challenges us to rethink our most fundamental beliefs. In addition, Lockhart asks some hard-hitting questions about Christian teachings and why God allows the world to be filled with evil. In The Dark Side of God, the sequel to Jesus the Heretic from Element 1997, is a passionate quest to recover the lost heart of Christianity. It will be a source of inspiration for all who seek genuine spiritual truth. The underlying message is one of hope for all who currently strive to free themselves from misguided belief and regain a true sense of spiritual purpose. First published in 1999. Lockhart has also written a novel entitled The Paradise Complex, an exploration of the forbidden. A brief description: if a new Messiah were announced, how would people respond? Would there be rejoicing, skepticism, or mere indifference? What would the position of the church be? How would the governments of the world react? More importantly, could people be sure that such a titanic figure was on the side of the light? These are the questions posited in this gripping contemporary tale, which starts when advertising executive Ian Drummond takes on the account of the mysterious Catharsis organization and a seemingly motiveless break-in at the office leads to threats and a sinister conspiracy to promote the enigmatic Messiah as the new Messiah. Soon, Drummond is in fear of his life as the ruthless Tristan LaCroix, attempts to manipulate the second coming for his own ends. So it's an interesting sort of eschatological apocalyptic novel, which obviously is fiction, but I imagine it's nevertheless entertaining. And a brief review says, A Taste of Paradise by James Moore. The Paradise Complex is quite simply one of the best books I have read this year. And this was 1997 in the Eastern Daily Press, 27th of April. Set in contemporary Britain, Douglas Lockhart seems to question how Western society would deal with the arrival of a quote-unquote new Messiah, and about whether such a figure would work for good or choose a darker route in the pursuit of power. Interesting, to say the least. And I'll probably pick that novel up, perhaps at a discount price. So here is a brief reading from the prologue of the book, Jesus the Heretic, a section which I found quite interesting. Beginning mid-section on page 8, quote, Roman Catholic Christianity eventually endowed Jesus with superlative wisdom and divinity, and out of this mythic move fell to imagining that it too had superlative wisdom. That is, in speaking of the Catholic Church authoritative structure. Alas, history does not agree. The persecution of those designated quote-unquote heretics is a sad tale not often enough told. Horrifying, actually. Oddly enough, Jesus too was a heretic. By definition, the Apostle Paul inadvertently makes him so when in Acts he says, quote, "But this I confess unto you, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers." Acts 24:14. Because he also claims to have received what he teaches from Jesus' own lips. 1 Corinthians 11:23. Jesus is, by definition, a heretic. And this is not to do Jesus an injustice, for in the light of his nonconformist teachings and behavior, he was without a doubt a heretical figure in Jewish eyes, namely the Pharisees and Sadducees, whom they accused of being blasphemous and having received his miraculous miracles from Satan, actually, was the accusation in the New Testament account. Continuing, and if he returned today, he would likewise be a heretic in the eyes of the Christian church. Unquote. Very compelling. And with that, this wraps up the theology spotlight of today. Jesus the Heretic, Freedom and Bondage in a Religious World, by author and journalist Douglas Lockhart.